Namaskaram. In this video, we will look at 4 or 5 verses in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. From now on, to understand Gita in depth and understand its practical implication, it's very important for us to look at Gita through the lens of Sankhya. Sankhya is one of the oldest ancient psychologies that has explained how the human mind functions and how we can learn to train the mind. So, when we are discussing about Gita, we will also weave it with the philosophy, the psychology of Sankhya. When Arjuna refuses to fight, let us see what Krishna says first. Krishna starts by saying, "Why are you doing such a disgraceful act?" And this disgraceful act will not allow you into heaven. The gates of heaven will close. Krishna also says, "Yield not to impotence." He calls Arjuna impotent. For he says, "Cast off this mean weakness of the heart, stand up, O scorcher of the foes." So let's understand this, or deeper significance. First, he says, yield not to these fears and become impotent. And he says the gates of heaven will close. So what happens to us in normal life? Mostly, people give up. As we discussed in the first video, we plan everything, the right moment we give up. Right? Not only that, even in normal life, we can find out what are those areas where you are literally given up. As a husband, as a wife, as an employer, as an employee, as a friend, as a father or as a mother, there are multiple roles. And find out in how many roles you are able to excel and be satisfied and to what extent. And most of us, after a certain age, we start giving up. We think now, beyond this, nothing can be done. And we just give up. And even if it comes to taking care of our health, we know what needs to be done, we still don't do it. We just give up. And finally, become old, diseased, and things happen. The problem is, we assume that after retirement, after the government retirement age of 60, things will become okay because I need not do any work. Actually, it's not true. You may not be doing physical work because the government has told retired or a company has told retired, but the mind will continue to switch on. The deepest amount of loneliness and depression are with geriatric patients or with elders who are above the age of 60. The reason is the mind is continuously churning, which means not for a moment will the mind be inactive. That's what Sri Krishna says in the subsequent chapters. Not for a moment will the mind be inactive. And what will the mind be brooding after the age of 60 or 70? All that it did not do well when it was young. It will be guilt and regret. Rather, he says, you are feeling guilt and regret at an older age because you gave up at one time. You can also think about it now, whatever be your age. If you're a student, you can think, oh, I should have studied well at that time. If you're an adult, 45 years old, you should have told, I should have made this decision at that time. Correct? At that time, when you take a wrong decision, which you're regretting now, is because somehow I gave it up. Because of many reasons. You will see the reasons later. But he says, the moment you give it up, it means people around you will start saying that you are important because you have not done it. On the other hand, you should stand up and fight the battle. What's the battle? What's the first battle? We again discussed in the first chapter. The first battle is learning to navigate through your thoughts and being positive. That's the first battle. And if you don't do that, if you just give it up, giving reasons that anyways I'm old, I have got this, I have got that, anyways the company is not good, my family is not okay, wife is not good, my father is not good, or whatever, or husband is not good, he has done all these things. Ultimately, it is you who is carrying the emotions. It is you who carries the guilt, regret, anger, And as long as the mind is heavy with so many thoughts and emotions, even the gates of heaven will not open up. which means there's so much of heaviness in the mind that it cannot move beyond this state of existence. And there will be rebirth. He says that there will be rebirth because the mind is so heavy that even if the body is dropped off, the mind cannot fly, or you are already entangled in the mind and hence you can't fly. Correct? So he says, just don't give up. Let us see what Arjuna says now. Arjuna now says, how can I kill Bhishma? How can I kill Dronacharya? They are supposed to be worshipped. How can I kill the sons of Dhritarashtra? Yes, they have done mistakes, I understand, but if I fight and kill all of them in the battlefield, I will accumulate all sins. It's better to beg rather than fight with them and take the kingdom back. And then he refuses to fight. He says, my heart is overpowered with the taint of pity. My mind is confused as to duty. And now he says, tell me decisively what is good for me. I am your disciple. Instruct me, and I have taken refuge in you. That's the Arjuna mind. The mind that turns inwards. He says, when I look at them, I pity them. My mind is confused. I just don't know what to do. Because on one hand I feel this, other hand you are asking me to fight. You tell me what to do because I am confused. That's Arjuna mind. That's the beauty of the Arjuna mind, which does not stick to what he says or what he thinks is right. When the mind is confused, he turns inwards where there is Krishna. It's again an indication for us to understand that when the mind is confused, there are so many things happening and I feel stuck. Better take help. Better take help. There are many instruments available. Arjuna says, tell me, I take refuge in you. And in a way, Sri Krishna is a meditative space inside us. That's the refuge. That's one reason people say, or that is one reason why sages say or yogis say, every day morning meditate at least for 1 hour focusing on the breath. Take refuge in the breath. Yes, when you start meditating, there will be a lot of thoughts moving around. For me, there are other practices. You have yoga, you have pranayama, everything, but you say, I don't have time for that. Half an hour every day, sit with your eyes closed, breathing, which means you're taking refuge in the breath. So many things happening. Take refuge in the breath. Don't think about anything. And slowly the mind will get cleared. Yes, there will be enormous number of thoughts when you start doing that. But after a few days, the mind will settle because the mind knows that you are focused on the breath. The mind will disappear. And it's a practice. So he says, I have taken refuge. Now you tell me what to do. He says, what is the point in me attaining all these glories? I'm confused because I just do not find any reason to do this action. Now let's see what Sri Krishna says. You are grieving for those that should not be grieved. Yet you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. So he says, your words seem to be wise. He acknowledges the sadness which Arjuna is experiencing. But he says, the wise will not grieve for neither the dead nor for those who are living. Which means the wise know that life is a continuous process. Let us see how. Nor at any time indeed was I not, nor you, nor these rulers of men, nor shall we ever cease to be hereafter. See how clearly Krishna says the fundamental aspect. He says, you, me, and everyone here are one. There is no difference between you and me. But still there is a difference. Because I experientially know that I will never die. I experientially know that I have always been and I will always be. But you do not know that now. They also do not know that now. Since they also do not know that now, but still experientially they are always there, do not grieve for them. That is number one. Now let us see how we can apply it in our life. Now, So as we shared before, the mind is heavy. The mind is not stable. The mind is not light. It is heavy. Which means the mind, when it became the mind for the first time, was absolutely free, as clean as a prism, as a glass. Which means you look through it, it was exactly showing what was outside. Have you ever walked through a glass which did not have any scratch? You walk through a glass, you will know that the glass existed only when the glass breaks. The mind was as transparent as that. That's the mind. Today that mind is completely clouded. That's number one. And when the mind gets clouded, it means that you have got identified with it. You don't see what is there outside. And since you got identified with the mind, you got identified with the emotions, you got identified with the thoughts, everything becomes a burden. You say this is painful, this is not painful. Because by default, if the mind gives you lot of pleasure, there is pain behind it. If there's lot of heat, there is cold behind it. It's two polarities. And he says, the wise man does not bother about heat or cold, nor does he bother about pain or pleasure. That's the next verse. He says, forget about pain or pleasure, forget about heat or cold, forget about what the senses tell you. Just be clear about what you need to do. Which means, in your current role, as it is, do not talk philosophy, do not talk anything. In your current state of life, find out what are your roles. Number one, if you ask me practically, one is to take care of our health, take care of the body, physical body. Second is to take care of the mind, the mental body, the emotions, thoughts. If these two are taken care of well, to an extent, you can manage the situation well. So third is the external situation. From the external situation, you have all the external roles. Your role of your father, mother, husband, wife, child, son, daughter, whatever. Employee, employer, all the roles are external. They are supposed to be done externally in interaction with others. So these are three things. Now, all these, as per Sankhya and as per Gita, are there in your current life, in your current state of existence, because of certain actions which you have done in the past. And since you did certain good actions, there is an amount of happiness and pleasantness inside you. And since you did certain actions did not give you the right results, you did certain actions without clarity, there is a certain amount of anguish or pain inside you. Now, that is how it is. My goal is to be free of both in such a way that I achieve my goal. I should not be engaging in an activity which is giving me pleasure. Imagine you are in a business and you like a few customers who don't give you any business. Just because you go there, they give you coffee or they treat you well. If you spend a lot of time with them, what will happen to your business? It's not going to work. Am I right? You are a student, you like watching television, you like going into social media, you don't study because studying is very painful. What will happen? You may actually experience pain later. Same thing, you apply this everywhere. Whatever gives pleasure to the mind, Sri Krishna says, has a beginning and an end. Similarly, whatever gives pain to the mind also has a beginning and an end. And you are experiencing the pain and the pleasure because you as a being, as a soul is inside the body. You as a soul is inside this body, inside this mind, and you have created the situation. No matter what, doesn't matter. This is a current situation. Your goal is to learn to navigate through this in such a pleasant way that you resolve everything well. And he clearly says, old age will not resolve the problem. Resigning from the company will not solve the problem. Resigning from your responsibilities will not solve the problem. You can resign from all responsibilities, go and sit in Himalayas, but still after going there, you'll still think about this. Or you may create a fight there. It happens in life, isn't it? You move from one company to another company. Same thing happens. You find, oh, that company was much better. Here it is more painful. Why? I do not solve or understand and learn to navigate through the challenges in my current company better. Same thing with the family. You may not like certain things in the family, but things you can't actually go and create one more family. And still some people do, and they have the same problem even there. So there's no escape there. That's what Sri Krishna says, no, there's no escape. There is no escape, so don't give up. Because if you give it up, people around you will say you're important. That is externally. Internally, your mind will be so heavy that it will not be light. And hence, you will not feel lightness. Heaven is basically, you will not feel pleasant at all in life because you clearly know that you have not done it. And just because you have become old, it is not going to solve the problem, because after you become old, even if you're not doing any physical activity, mental activity will continue. It will only aggravate the problem. Hence, do your responsibility right. How does he say that? He says, a man who is firm, he will not be wooed. He will not be moved either by pain or pleasure. This means he will not do a certain task because his mind likes it. He will not avoid a certain task because there is pain. He will endure both pain and pleasure in the same way and continue to execute his duty. And he says, if he continue to execute his duty in the right way, he will attain immortality. Immortality basically means two things. One, not getting another life. That's a distant goal. But in the current life, immortality means I do not get the same problem again, or even if I get the problem, I can navigate out of it because I have experience. Look at your life. There are many things which you would have done which don't repeat because you clearly know what to do, because you have navigated through it well. You know what to do, you know how to handle the challenge. The problem is there are certain challenges which are not handled right. There are certain thoughts that are not handled right. There are certain emotions not handled right, for which you do not give priority. It's sitting as a big burden now, and that's making life stuck. It's time to learn to manage those emotions and thoughts right. Be clear of it and start executing the roles. When you do that, life opens up in such a big way that the same problem may not come again. And even if it comes, you'll welcome it because you know how to handle it. That's all. That's the message of Gita here. He says, do your responsibility well, learn to do it well, turn to your inner self, do certain practices by which you will be calm, relaxed, and you'll be able to do your work with clear clarity and focus. We'll meet in the next lecture. Thank you.